Hello everybody and welcome back to my channel. My name is Jessie Darcy and here we like to talk about movies, books, TV shows, and all that fun stuff. So what are we talking about today? Well, the other weekend I had an epiphany and I was like, this is brilliant. But anyways, my parents had finally watched The Eternals and to no one's surprise, they couldn't understand some things, they didn't know what some things were, why they were important, what are Eternals, what are the Celestials, all that stuff. So I thought, wow, it'd be a really great idea if someone put together a presentation of everything that has happened in the MCU and why it has led up to this point in particular. And I was like, I should do that, of course. So I did that, and bad thing is, the entire presentation, I put it into slides. I don't know if it'll come out as slides, but basically there's like 52 pages worth. And I'm not even finished. I'm still in phase 4 to try and figure all that out. So I thought about breaking it down into phases. So today we're going to start with phase 1, because it's number 1. And we're just going to do surface level stuff for now, because if I went into depth on a lot of this stuff, it would just be way too long. Way too long. So surface level, it's going to be great. Okay, number 1, what is the MCU? MCU stands for Marvel Cinematic Universe, meaning all stories that are told by Marvel is interwoven to make a much bigger story. So anything that is under the guise of Disney/Marvel, like Disney and Marvel, not like Disney movies and then Marvel movies, Disney and Marvel are all woven together. They all take place in the same universe, and that's just how it goes. So I don't make the rules. So phase 1 is pretty interesting. It started around before the whole Fox merger with Disney, and they couldn't do some titles like Fantastic Four or X-Men, even Spider-Man. Spider-Man's with Sony, but you get the picture. They couldn't do all that stuff, so they had to start with non-normal superheroes, I guess. B-list superheroes that you wouldn't see. Like, people who have read comics would be like, oh yeah, I know who that is, but then people who don't read comics are like, I think I've heard of them before, but not really. So that's what we're jumping into. Now, everything is included now. Basically, we're still in negotiations with Sony, but we just made a Spider-Man movie, so why not? Hope we're still on good terms. So what we need to know before we dive in is, of course, I said before, we're going to be breaking this up into phases. Phase 1. What are we going to be talking about today? Okay, so we got Iron Man, The Incredible Hulk, Iron Man 2, Thor, Captain America the First Avenger, and the Avengers. This is going to be the shortest of all the phases, really. That's all the titles that are included in phase 1, and that's going to be this basis. Phase 1, Act 1 kind of thing, Let's start with Iron Man. So yeah, he's the first superhero introduced in the MCU. What do we need to know about him? He is rich, smart. He creates weaponry for war, and he has a lot of daddy issues. Just gonna throw that out there, and we'll continue to see that into phase 3. So we start out in this movie, he gets captured while he's over in the Middle East showing off his new weapons. He gets captured by a gang called the Ten Rings. Remember that name, because that will be reoccurring. So he gets captured, and in desperation, he makes the Iron Man suit to get out. So he gets back home, and he goes back to living his life, like tries to acclimate, but he's been changed, and he's like, we're no longer selling weapons, and that's a huge tank on his industry, because they don't only, but that's a huge market. But his business partner, who is his dad's business partner back in the day, Obadiah Stane, is like not happy about it. He's like, ugh, horrible. And he really wants to take over the company. So while Tony's back, he actually tries to make a better version of the Iron Man suit, and he does. It's beautiful, a little chunky for the beginning. We'll see much slimmer suits in future movies. And his assistant Pepper Potts is like, what's going on? She's important. That's why I say that. She's important in the movie, and she's important in the future. She's sensing something fishy about Obadiah Stane. Turns out Obadiah sent the hit on Tony Stark to be captured by the Ten Rings and kill him. So he's like, what the heck? And it turns out Obadiah made his own Iron Man suit. And in the end, there's a little tussle. They fight. Obadiah falls into the arc reactor and dies. Which I think it's confirmed that he dies because we don't see him. We really don't see him, like, even now we don't see much of him. We do hear, his name afterwards a few times, but not really important. So he's out of the picture. And then in the end credits, there is a hint about the Avengers initiative, which is huge. And Nick Fury, who's a big character in the comics, he's the head of S.H.I.E.L.D., he comes to Tony and says, hey, I want to talk to you about the Avengers initiative. There you go. That's Iron Man. That's Iron Man for you. So, start of the MCU, coming out strong. I remember watching that movie and I was like, okay, I'm into it. This looks good. And then on to the second movie. I think it came out the same year as well, but it's called The Incredible Hulk. It's with Edward Norton. And we will see, he plays Bruce Banner. And we'll see that he doesn't continue playing Bruce Banner after this movie. Mark Ruffalo takes over. There's a lot of things there's a lot of he said, she said of what happened behind the scenes and why Edward Norton's no longer in the franchise. But basically, we just know that Mark Ruffalo took over. The entire story of The Incredible Hulk is that Bruce is volunteered, or he tries to make the super soldier serum, which is a very important term. We'll come back to that later. Super soldier serum, but with gamma radiation, but it affects him badly, so it turns him into the Hulk. And he goes into hiding because his ex-girlfriend's dad, who's a General Ross, who's a recurring character as well, he's after him, and he's like, ooh, this guy is like a super powerful guy. We gotta bring him in. But he, goes into hiding very, very well for 5 years, and then he comes back and sees Betty, his ex, and is like, you need to help me, all this stuff, and basically he doesn't want to be taken in. He wants to be a free guy. But at the same time, there's a man named Emil Blonsky who is undergoing the super soldier serum just like Bruce did, and it turns out he becomes a horrible version of what the Hulk looks like, and he's called the Abomination. And towards the end of the movie, there's a huge fight in Harlem. It just gets real bad. The Hulk knocks out Abomination and then just skirts out of there, basically. Abomination is not dead. He comes back, but later on. We'll see him later on, like a couple phases from now. So keep that in the back of your mind. So he just goes off into hiding like he did before, and we don't see him until Avengers. So that's literally the cap of his story. The only thing we need to remember from The Incredible Hulk is we have General Ross, who's a recurring character. Betty Ross really doesn't come back as much. Actually, I don't think she comes back at all. So she's put on the shelf. We hear her name probably once. That's it. Oh, and this movie takes place around the same time as 3 other movies. I will get to them when I get to them. Good. Okay. No, 4 other movies. 3 other movies. 4 other movies. Whatever. Okay, next movie. Iron Man 2. We already have a sequel, and it's the 3rd movie in. Robert Downey Jr. comes back for Iron Man 2. This one, a lot of people think is the best one out of the Iron Man trilogy. I absolutely see why. I think I agree with it. I don't know. I haven't gotten to the rewatching the 3rd one yet, but I think I remember liking this one the most. Anyways, Tony Stark is back, but he's also dying, so that's bad. He's the antidote, or the arc reactor in his chest is basically poisoning him, and he's literally got 2 chances to die. Either the shrapnel will get him or the poison in his body. So he keeps making antidotes, putting them in, and they only last for so long. And so he's like, okay, well, if I'm gonna die, I'm gonna live it up. So he tries to live it up. And Pepper's like, what the heck? You're gonna kill yourself. And he's like, okay, whatever. So there's that whole tiff between them. Like, it just doesn't get any better, really. And there's also kind of like a budding love that we saw in the first one, and that's getting in the way. Like the Tony being nonchalant about him basically risking his life all the time is getting in the way of the budding romance between him and Pepper. So what are we gonna do about it? Well, basically Nick Fury comes out, and his new assistant Tony's new assistant, who he thought was normal, Natalie, actually turns out to be Natasha Romanoff, who is a agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. and was sent to basically keep eyes on Tony. And Nick Fury's like, dude, you're dying, you're being an absolute idiot. And Tony's like, true enough. So the whole gist that happens is Justin Hammer, well, there's a lot of characters in this movie. I didn't realize until I'm actually saying it now. Justin Hammer, who is Tony's rival in business, tries to make Iron Man suits with the help of the guy who tries to kill Tony in Monaco, who says that his dad helped build the arc reactor. Basically, it was his idea, and makes all these suits, and it just goes haywire. Justin gets arrested, and then Ivan died. He basically killed himself for self-destruct, and he just wanted it was honor, basically. He wanted honor. Long story short, Pepper finds out that Tony was dying, and she was like, oh, why didn't you tell me, you idiot? And he was like, fair enough. And so at the end of the movie, they finally get all the shrapnel out, and he's made new. And there is a little sneak peek, though, during this. When Tony is making the new element, we see Captain America's shield, and that's giving us a little hint for what's coming next. But basically, after all that, Nick Fury, he's like, you're out of the Avengers initiative. We don't want someone like you just being a liability. And he's like, okay, that sucks, but okay. And basically, we come to the end of this movie, and we figure out that there is other stuff going on. Like I said in the Incredible Hulk chapter thing, when I was talking about that movie, that's happening at the same time as this movie. There's a week period that is going on, and these two movies, they're happening at the same time. And then the next movie is also happening at the same time too. And that next movie is Thor. Yeah. Yep. Norse mythology. That Thor. So the whole entire premise is that Thor is he's just like, I can do what I want kind of thing, you know? He's, I forget the word is, but he's that. He's that. And, he wants to be king. He wants to be in charge. He likes to fight. And basically he gets himself into trouble, and his dad's like, no, you're being banished to Earth. And you won't have your hammer either, which was his failsafe. He was like, yeah, my hammer, love it. You know. Yikes. So he gets banished to Earth, but he gets banished to New Mexico on Earth. And it's around the same area as Jane, Dr. Jane Foster, who's played by Natalie Portman, is there setting up scientific stuff, basically. And she is just like, okay, who's this guy? We'll take him to the hospital because he's, passed out. And, long story short, they become intertwined in their stories. And so he enlightens Jane on everything that he knows. And turns out at the same time, Loki was the one who set the pieces up to get his brother banished. Yeah, he's the god of tricks. But he also figures out that he's adopted, and nobody told him, and he was adopted. He was originally a frost giant, and they're not loved by the Asgardians, at all. And so he gets really mad with his dad, tries to set up that he wants to kind of kill his dad in a way. He was he's just so upset. It's all family, Shakespearean stuff, which works out in the long run because the guy who filmed this is Kenneth Branagh, and he's really good at Shakespeare stuff. But basically Loki tries to pose him as, okay, he wants to kill his dad, but he poses the ice giants to try and kill his dad, but he to look like he avenges them, so he becomes a good brother and tries to take over. And that doesn't actually work because people see right through it, and so does Thor. Basically, in the end, Thor and Loki get into a tiff, and they're like, Thor's like, I forgive you, brother. I mean, what you've been through is just absolute crap. You literally just, you found out you were adopted, and then, dad lied to you and all this stuff. Yeah, can be really bad sometimes. Alright, come with us and we'll help you out. And then Loki's like, no. And then he just releases from the Rainbow Bridge, and he just falls down into space, and we don't see from him, or do we really see him later? Yes, we do. He's not dead. But in this movie, we also get introduced to Hawkeye, who, just like a 5 seconds, he's the guy with the bow and arrow. He's an Avenger. He will become an Avenger. And he's an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. as well. So this entire movie is setting up, like, there's a huge family theme, especially the theme of father and son that is just strained throughout the entire MCU. Throughout phase 3. Still unfinished with phase 4, but we do see some father-son relationships, and they are strained, but there's a different take on it. But with this one, it's a huge strain, you know? So poor Loki, he just, you know, unfortunately, he just feels the bad effects from what was going on with his dad and how his dad treated him. So yeah, that's the end of this movie. It's good. And like I said, with Incredible Hulk and Iron Man 2, this happens at the same time whenever Thor goes down into New Mexico. Same time period. Next movie is Captain America: The First Avenger. This takes place in 1940s. I think it's like 1943, 1944. I can't remember the exact date, but 1940s, World War II is happening. Steve Rogers, he wants to fight for his country. He just wants to be patriotic. He wants to help wherever he can help, but the way that he wants to help is fighting in the army. He can't. He's small, he's scrawny, he has asthma, all this stuff. I mean, he has literally everything that makes him not a good participant to be in the army, and that sucks. He convinces himself to go into training because he becomes the perfect candidate for the original Super Soldier Serum program. Yes, that term came back. But this one actually goes right. And then we also see how it goes wrong. So we see Steve, he's small and scrawny, he goes to the testing facility, he goes through the experiment process, and he literally changes. His entire physique changes, becomes stronger, faster, all that. He becomes the ultimate fighter, basically. Choose him in Super Street Fighter, you're gonna win every single time. Basically, his entire storyline goes down to there's another force that is fighting people in America, and especially S.H.I.E.L.D., and they're called Hydra. And Hydra, the only way I can really describe Hydra is like they're kind of like Nazis, but they're like ideas are like bigger brained, as they say. They're looking towards the future and towards space, really. And the guy who's in charge, Red Skull, kind of a scary fellow, but he literally has a red skull, and it's because he tried the Super Soldier Serum and it didn't work on him, and trash. He's trash. We figure out that the Super Soldier Serum, it's not just gonna make you stronger and like all that stuff, it's literally what takes the stuff inside you and it amplifies it. So if you're a good person, it amplifies that good. Or if you're doing this for, nasty reasons, it's gonna amplify that nastiness. So that's how it affected Red Skull. His assistant, Red Skull's assistant, Zola, a German scientist, he is a mastermind too, and we're like, what the heck? Where does he go? Well, we found out later he gets, like, every single German scientist in World War II, well, almost every single German scientist in World War II, gets drafted by the United States. Joke's on you guys. That was a terrible choice. Or was it? No, I think it was a terrible choice. Anyway, so at the end of the movie, we figure out Red Skull just wanted that gem. What was that square gem that Red Skull wanted? Well, it basically devoured him. Shot him somewhere. We don't know. Or do we? Anyways, and it just falls right out of the ship. Into somewhere. We don't see much of it again. Or do we? Steve has to put the plane down, and he crashes into the ice and is frozen solid into the ice for 70 years until someone gets him out of there. And then he wakes up in 2012 and wakes up around the same time as the events of Thor, Incredible Hulk, and Iron Man 2. Absolutely crazy. And then Nick Fury's like, well, we want to talk about the Avengers Initiative. Like he does. So basically this entire movie is, it's really well done. It's one of my favorites. We get the introduction to Hydra. Hydra becomes a reoccurring villain, and we'll see more in the next phase. We also get the introduction to Tony Stark's dad, Howard Stark. And Howard Stark is important. We'll see more of him later. He makes Steve's shield, which is what we see in Iron Man 2 in the creating the element scene. And we also meet Peggy Carter, who we hear from her again, and I think we see from her again. But she is one of the founders of S.H.I.E.L.D. That's what we know. And so, just a lot of good basic stuff that we learn that is just, it's the introduction to a lot of modern MCU villains and organizations, all that stuff. This is a really good movie to get introduced to that stuff. A lot of people start with this for their chronological MCU watches. You can, but if you haven't seen it before, I would advise going through release order. So that's the end of this movie. So we're in 2012, and the last movie in the Phase 1 lineup is the Avengers, the most daring crossover event of its time. So we have Captain America, Iron Man, Hulk, Black Widow, and Hawkeye all in one movie, and they are fighting Loki. Loki wants to take over the Earth. He wants to be king of the Earth because he can't be king of Asgard. Yeah, he's back. Loki's back. Someone caught him in space. So Loki has a scepter, and it has a stone in it, and it makes people follow what he wants to do. That's how he gets Hawkeye to do what he wants to do, and Hawkeye was under a spell for so long. They finally got him out of it, don't worry. We get to a part where they're fighting in New York City, basically tearing down all these buildings. There's so much going on. Loki enlisted the Chitauri army from space. Yes, there's an entire space alien army. That's just giving a hint to what Phase 2 could hold. The Chitauri army is just trying to take over, I was going to say delete, kill all the Avengers and just help Loki take over the world and all that stuff. And we think that Loki is the mastermind behind this, but he really isn't. We see some breaks in Loki's demeanor where it makes us think, this sad little boy couldn't do all this. No, there's got to be someone else behind the scenes, and there is. So after Tony brings the rocket and shoots it up to the Chitauri, like a ship that has like the brain in it, to control all the Chitauri. After he does that and, goes back to Earth, they bring Loki in, handcuff him. Thor takes him back. He's like, he belongs to Asgard. We'll take care of it. But what we should know from this first phase is that the Avengers work together, but not without its disagreements, especially between Tony and Steve. And that will be built up way more. And we'll see more of that just evolving, that argument and that tense relationship between them that will show its cards more. So anyways, that is the end of the Avengers. A great movie to cap off Phase 1. So really all we need to pull from this is we have our reoccurring characters that we have from each movie that are introduced and sometimes have parts in Avengers and probably will have more parts in later movies. We have our conflicts of familial conflicts that will happen more and more in each movie or TV show perhaps. But that will happen more and more, and we'll see more of that with different characters. And we also know that there's an Avengers initiative. Now, how did that start? We don't know. Maybe. Do we know? We will. We will find out where that started. And there are things in space. There are things in space that there's just so much. And we are just at the tip of the iceberg. There's so much more. And even now we're in Phase 4 where we learn a lot more about what's in space. We still haven't even dove in deep. There's still so much more. And yeah, that's the end of Phase 1, guys. There's a lot going on in Phase 1. So much is happening. And it's a great basis to what will be concluded in Phase 3 of the Avengers arc. And I hope that helped with, a little surface level explanation. If you want me to go into more depth, I definitely can, and I would love to, because I love just diving deep and theorizing and all that stuff. That's one of my favorite things. Basically, was most of my papers in college was theorizing things and then showing support of why it's real. But yeah, if you want to hear more, I'm going to be doing phase 2 soon. If you want to hear more, maybe more in depth of each movie or something like that, let me know in the comments, because that would be great. Or if you have other ideas of other series or movie franchises I should do presentations of, do surface level and then like in depth or something like that, let me know that as well. If you like this video, like it. If you want to see more videos and want to know when phase 2 is coming up, make sure you subscribe, because then you will figure out when, and that'll be a good idea. So yeah, that's it, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.